I take my eyes off you for 1 second and you manage to get into trouble. You guys could have died, you know?
Who are you?
Kizuna. Hazayama Kizuna. Hunting hero of the 4 cardinal heroes.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Anime Night, where we take a season of anime and we go over it episode by episode and give our thoughts. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me is my very mad at me wife, Andrea. Andrea, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me.
Why?
So, fun fact, we are actually recording this a day later because we were that backed up on episodes, because last night we finally watched the post-climax, let's put it that way, the post-climax of the Spirit Tortoise arc, and we started with the world surfing, and this episode in particular was kind of interesting. It was called Infinite Labyrinth, and just to give a quick summary of the episode, Naofumi, Rishia, and Raphtalia all wake up in a prison. They're not sure why they're there. For some reason, Raphtalia is a little girl again. Philo is nowhere to be seen. And they're all back down to level 1. No reason for it. We don't know why, but they are. And so at that point, another thing they notice is that Naofumi's shield is different. And probably because of how this world works. And so with that, they decide, okay, well, we can't stay in this prison because nobody's there. So we better go out and explore. Maybe we'll find Philo. To which they come out to a beach where it looks like it can go on forever, and they are just kind of stuck on an island. So they obviously start exploring and trying to gain some levels, because obviously they are very weak right now, especially Raphtalia, who now has to haul around her huge sword, and she's in her little girl body. And after having a couple of monsters go the right way, they come across I think he said it was a kappa, and that goes sideways real fast. So Naofumi takes some damage. Rishia is not really able to do any damage to it. But, same thing with Raphtalia, to which they are met by a new character, a new hero, who is Kizuna. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Hayase. Kizuna Kazuyama. That's what it is. And she is the hunter hero. And the way that she beats the Kappa is quite interesting, because she basically takes a giant fishing line and crushes it with the fishing line. And so it looks like her vassal weapon is a giant fishing rod. We actually find out later it has numerous forms. And Kizuna has actually been there for quite a while, as she has been stuck in what she calls the Infinite Labyrinth for quite a few years. So really quick, let's go over Kizuna. So what were your thoughts of Kizuna when we first met her?
I don't have much to say on her.
She's like, were you worried about her and like her being an enemy or anything like that?
No.
Okay. So we meet with Kizuna, and we have a few things show up. And initially, there isn't too much to say about her, except for that she is the hunter hero, but we learn a couple of major facts. One, she has been there for many years. So many years, in fact, she's lost count of how many years she's been there. Now, thankfully, she's not like a crazy prisoner where, they've been there for 20 plus years and they start rambling nonsensically. She's still very retaining of her faculties. But the second interesting fact, which sets off Naofumi to a little bit, is apparently she is, quote, best friends with Glass. And she is aware of Lark. She didn't say anything about Therese, so we don't know if she knows Therese. but she is best friends with Glass, which obviously sets Naofumi off, and he immediately doesn't trust her. So that's interesting. The other thing that we should point out, because I'm sure people will ask about this and what we thought about it, she appears to be a little girl. She actually looks about Raphtalia's age in human years, which I would be as like 6 or 7, maybe 9 or 10. And it turns out that she's actually 18. And so Naofumi immediately calls her a lollyhag, which is, after looking it up and determining whether or not we actually needed to talk about it, I have decided that, Andrea, we don't need to talk about it. Because that, in order to do that, we would have to get into the whole lolly fetish, and we've already done that enough with Motoyasu and his weird obsession with Philo. And so at that point, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but if you looked at her, would you buy that she was 18?
No.
Probably not. What did you think of her weapon? Because at this point, while we're having this explained, we then see that her weapon can convert from a fishing rod to, I'm guessing it was supposed to be a hunting knife, but looks more like a sword. So much like Naofumi, where he can make his shield into numerous other shields, it looks like hers becomes various other hunting weapons. It's basically the best way to describe it is how I did last night with you. It's a Swiss Army knife, roughly. And so at some point, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a nail clippers version. What did you think of her weapon as things went along?
I couldn't figure out what weapon it was.
Do you think it's better or worse than, say, like, because all of the weapons you've seen up until this point are like, yes, they change, but they change into different spears, different swords, different shields. Whereas this one changes into fishing pole, a knife / sword. I think those are the only ones we saw that it could become. According to the manga, I actually had to go look this up. There are a few other forms that get shown, and they're all kind of based around hunting and survival. So at that point, do we think it's better or worse than the other weapons? Because the other weapons are restricted into, they have to be that one form. I'm kind of torn, honestly, because, I mean, it is interesting that you could have like all of these interesting options, like a fishing rod and a filleting knife and stuff like that. But I can also see some limitations with it, because it's not like in the sense of Ren, where he can change the type of sword that he has and make it suit a specific battle. She's very much in her own little niche. So I'm not sure how I feel about it, and it sounds to me like you're not sure either. We'll have to see a little bit more about it, but for the time being, they decide to come up with a tenuous alliance. They all go and eat dinner, to which we have a little bit of a gag about Raphtalia and how she actually has to eat twice as much food when she's a little kid, because demihumans level up faster than most. So we get some humor with that. We also get some humor in the fact that we find out Rishia and Naofumi can no longer wear the armor that they've been wearing. For some reason, like, their stats start getting glitched out, and the only reason they can think of is because they're too low level to actually wield them. So they then go to basically, I think it was supposed to be like the cardboard monster that they killed, and it looked like they had like a cardboard breastplate on. It was kind of silly. But Kizuna takes them to another part of the island where, just to kind of showcase that you can't get off the island, and we even learned during the conversation that there are specific restrictions, even though that Ost gave Naofumi permission to be able to travel worlds. that is being overridden by the world they're in. And so it's saying that the exception has failed, it doesn't work. So she takes them to a church, which is supposed to be like the end of the world, and she basically showcases why she thinks this is the end of the world, because there's like a wall that's boarded up in the front, and she takes the boards down, and it is straight just white screen. And so at that point, she immediately assumes, okay, this is where you can leave the world and go somewhere else. But obviously, when Naofumi tries, he is stopped by a wall, and he gets the same restrictions that he did before. So at that point, Naofumi is basically looking at the wall and saying, how can we bypass this? And the only conclusion that they all can come to is that it's a bug. It's not supposed to be looking like a hole in the wall in a church. It's bugged out that way, so what do you do with bugs? You exploit them. So he has Kizuna go and get a seed. I can't remember what they actually called it, but it's basically a rapidly growing seed that comes out with devil vines and stuff like that. And they immediately get it to start growing and to basically burst out of the world. And so at that point, they basically all hover in between where the vines are growing all around them and let them burst out of the world, and then they'll go with it. And thankfully, they are able to get past all of this, even though Kizuna is not sure if she can trust Naofumi, and vice versa for Naofumi with Kizuna. And by the way, Philo has not been found this entire time. So really quick, do we want to theorize what happened? I honestly think maybe because she's a Philolial queen, or at least one in training, maybe that blocked her from going. Or maybe she is there and we just didn't see her. I mean, do you think I'm right or wrong on any of those?
Probably just went somewhere else.
That actually, I didn't think about that. What if she went to another world entirely, and now she has to be on her own for a little bit? I love the fact that you made the joke of like, oh, so if Raftali is a little girl, does that mean Philo's an egg again? And I like that idea, but I think she would just be like a Philolial chick again. Because wasn't there a point where she was like on Naofumi's head as a chick?
Yeah.
I think she'd be like that. But the episode then ends with them going back to Kizuna's world. So the world that she was summoned to. Oh yeah, and we should point this out. She is also Japanese, like Naofumi. For some reason, this book ends up in Japan all the time. And so at that point, they actually end up in the world that summoned Kizuna. And they then decide to kind of work with that. Obviously, Kizuna's happy to be out because she's been there for so long. And now she can actually go meet up with Glass and the others. And that's basically how we end it. We're in this new world that Kizuna's from. And I guess they're going to have to rely on Kizuna. I would be very interested to see if they went back to level 1 again, because they went to a whole new world. But I guess we'll find out. What did this episode do positively, Andrea?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think it sets up a whole new arc. It basically is saying, okay, we can now world surf, and now we can come across different other heroes, and also kind of showcases a limbo kind of world where people can get stuck, which is kind of what the Infinite Labyrinth kind of sounds like to me. So, yeah, it's interesting, and Kizuna as a character is going to be interesting to learn about, but I can't really say that this thing... It's kind of like the first episode, or like the first or second episode of season 2. It's building up to other things. So,
well, if she's a cardinal hero, does that mean that
we didn't even talk about that, did we? So she also is a cardinal hero, as opposed to a vassal hero, and I'm starting to realize there's a distinct difference between the two. And you mentioned it too, where cardinal heroes appear to be like bound to the world they're in, whereas it sounds like vassal heroes like Glass. I don't even know Glass. Maybe Glass was a cardinal hero and gained permission like Naofumi did, but vassal heroes can apparently go between the worlds. But that also offers up like a whole other slew of questions. In particular, one I brought up with you last night of what happens when a wave is active? Because in that world, Naofumi would be instantly teleported to it. How does that work if he's off-world? Does it still teleport him? Or maybe it just can't find him, and so it doesn't worry about it? I don't know. There's a lot of questions to be able to answer here, but any positives for you?
No, not really.
Yeah, not a whole lot happened here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a lot of good humor, but that was about it. Is there anything this episode did wrong? Again, I can't really say. It's not that it was slow or anything like that. It actually kept a fairly good pace. But I can't really say it did anything bad because it was just building up into a whole other arc. So at that point, we won't be able to judge that right off the bat.
What did she do again to end up in that prison in the first place?
I don't remember if she actually ever said.
I thought she said something because Naofumi asked her how she ended up there, and she said something about going in through an enemy camp or something.
Oh,
or
no, she was captured. That's right. And then she wound up there.
Mm.
So, yeah, that brings up an interesting question. What happened there? But now that we're in Kizuna's world, maybe we'll find out.
But then why would Naofumi and Risha and Raftalia ended up there?
Maybe my guess is that when they broke the Infinite Labyrinth, so to speak, it just rerouted them to the nearest world in that particular direction.
Well, yeah, but why they end up there and not like go to the world and
like Melromark, you mean? Again, I don't know, because like we're entering into a whole new kind of way that the universe works now instead of just the world. So at that point, until things get further explained, we probably won't know. I mean, because that brings up an interesting question. You know, Kyo's been world hopping for quite a while, and we did learn that the Spirit Tortoise wasn't the first time that he tried to take control of a raid boss. So at that point, like, how did he know that that world had that raid boss and etc.? Because they made it look like he knew about it. So to me, it's a dozen other questions that we just don't have the answers to. And so that, again, that's why I'm saying it's very difficult to call out negatives here, because it's setting a whole new status quo. So at that point, that status quo has to be set, and then we can actually get into it. So positives and negatives aside, out of 5, what would you give Infinite Labyrinth?
3, I guess.
I'm kind of there too, like a 3 right down the middle. It was setting up new rules, setting up new stakes, setting up how Naofumi works now, as well as Raftalia and all that. It's definitely setting things up for a grander scheme, but we have to wait until the next episode, because now we're in Kizuna's world, so now we have to learn about Kizuna's world and how that works, and whether or not we'll find Philo there. So at that point, yeah, I think it's just right down the middle. It did what it needed to do. It didn't really branch out from that. And that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. I hate to end it so shortly, but there really isn't a whole lot to talk about aside from the introduction of Kizuna, and we'll have to learn more about her as the next episode unfolds. But thank you guys so much for listening in. We appreciate all of the love and support that you've given us. And if you're brand spanking new, welcome. We're happy to have you. Please consider liking and subscribing on YouTube or on Rumble or on any of the platforms that you're on, including podcast platforms like Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Player.fm, and of course, Spotify. It really goes a great distance to be able to help us out. We really do appreciate it. And then you could also check out some of the other content that we're working on, like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City duels that myself, Alex, the Shadow Blazer, and Brinton Volley are working on. And also, you guys can look forward to a bunch of movie reviews, because if you have listened to the previous episode, we just got back from a big vacation. And when me and Andrea are on vacation, we're actually allowed to be able to catch up on things we missed. And we watched basically a movie a night. So at that point, you guys have a lot of really cool reviews coming very soon. And I am happy to announce that the first one is going to be the Super Mario Brothers movie. So you guys can see our thoughts on that. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So thank you guys so much for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time for episode 8 of Shield Hero Season 2.